I've been at a lot of schools. This should not be 42%. We got to change it up.
Right.
Like, we got to start focusing on what's important. First of all, we have to tell kids what the goal is. Do they even know? The first time in my career, I really experienced what it's like when somebody doesn't want you in their space.
What are 3 excellence principles you say worked at your school and could probably work in other places?
I would think first,
What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? I'm back again with another episode of The Journey to Freedom with StephenMotivate, and I have a special guest, someone so dear and near to my heart. I have with me today a principal and educator of over 20 years, becoming a world-renowned speaker in the education space. I have none other than my own sister, Mrs. And I see the people in the, in your profession call you Kellèe, which is the proper enunciation of your name. Kellèe Martin now. Hey,
Hello.
Kellèe. How's it going?
Hey, little bro. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, sis?
I'm doing great.
Good.
So glad to be here. Proud of you for this podcast that you've started. The journey, I think, is very helpful. It's going to be impactful. So thank you for having me as a very special guest, but thank you for what you're doing for the people.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you so much for giving me that recognition. Now, you introduce yourself a little bit better than I did. What do you do? What are you proud of? How should people know about Kellèe Martin? I call her Kelly, but y'all call her Kellèe. Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay. So I am an educator, like Stephen said, of over 20 years. I actually have 27 years in education, working as classroom teacher, assistant principal, instructional coach, and also now a building level principal. But beyond that, I'm a human being that is a mother. I was a single mother for several years, recently got married back in November of 2024. So now I'm also a wife to an amazing husband. His name is Brian Martin. Love you, babe.
Shout out to Brian.
Shout out to my honeydew. And that's it. I also have 2 bonus daughters now. So actually, I'm the mother of 2 plus 2. So yes. What am I proud of? I am proud of being a mom, but I'm also proud of all the things I've been able to accomplish in the educational space over these past 27 years, working in multiple schools and multiple school districts, but also at multiple levels. So I'm proud of that.
That's super dope. That's super dope. So I just heard you speak. You did an amazing job. I don't know if I've ever heard you speak at that level in front of hundreds of people today. You did wonderful. That's really cool. But before we dive into some of that, and I want to get into some of that and some of the cool things you and your team have done at Spring Mill Elementary School, let's dial it back a bit. Where does this all start at? Where are you from? Even though I know, obviously, what's your family? How do you tell people about yourself when they don't know you?
Okay. So born and raised in Muncie, Indiana, small town. Went to Ball State University. Chirp, chirp.
Chirp, chirp.
For those that know that reference. I knew that I wanted to teach probably when I was 5 years old,
Really?
to be honest.
Wow.
Early on. If you came to my house, one thing was going to be true. We were going to play school. And I was going to be the teacher. Okay. I was the kid on the last day of school that was digging through the trash cans, getting the teacher's old grade books, manuals, and all those type of things because I
Really?
felt like I had to have all the tools, like legit.
That's crazy.
I would be digging through the trash.
How much was you making Andre be the student?
Every opportunity. Not only Andre, Abby, all of the cousins, all of my friends, and they'll tell you that too. I was very obnoxious about it and a little bit aggressive because, leadership starts early.
It does. That's cool. Okay, so Ball State. Now, when you're at Ball State, I know we talked a little bit about this since you've been here this weekend. You are also working a second job. On this show, we talk a lot about entrepreneurship, side hustles, all that sort of thing. Tell us about some of the second jobs you were working while pursuing your degree.
Okay, so while at Ball State, I worked as a daycare worker. I had done babysitting pretty much early on. That was the job that you had. You weren't as kids, then we didn't really have other jobs. You babysat, we went to church. There were families at church that needed babysitters. And so we would often babysit in that space. And, I would watch a whole house of kids for $20 and think that I had arrived. And I was so happy for that $20 bill. And so that's what I did most often is babysit, worked at daycare. But then also towards the end of my college career, probably around my sophomore, junior year, I worked as a bank teller. So as a bank teller, I started off as a floating teller, and I worked at several different banks in the area. I would go to all these different surrounding banks, and I would be like the extra person that would show up when they needed extra support and help. And so I did that. And then after that, I worked as a makeup artist. I don't think a lot of people know that. For Estee Lauder Cosmetics, they opened up a brand new department store in the Muncie Mall. At that time, it was Elder Bierman. And since it was going to be a brand new store, they needed a lot of help. And so they hired a lot of college kids. So I think the whole makeup department were college students, except for a few people who are more mature and veteran. And so I ended up working for Estee Lauder, and that allowed and afforded me the opportunity to travel to different stores, doing makeup artistry, but also getting lots of training as a makeup artist. They would have big events where we would go to training. They would teach us about products, give us free products to sample, and really teach us how to sell and market their product line, and also talk to us a lot about the importance of skincare at an early age, which is probably why I don't look my age. But it was so that was really kind of my path. I don't think a lot of people know I worked as a makeup artist.
Yeah, that's really cool. So a couple things I got from that. One, go to church if you're not going, because you could get some connections, seriously, economic connections that could turn into side hustles, that could turn into careers, all that sort of thing. So don't forsake going to church. There's more than just the gospel being preached there. There are connections and community happening.
Absolutely. And come in person.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go to church, but a lot of people are going online.
Right.
So get inside occasionally, frequently, because it does have the opportunity to create those connections.
Yeah. What did you learn from the selling piece in makeup? So I know that's such a personal thing for people to want to wear makeup or be look more beautiful or look their best. What's one thing you remember from that time frame of how to sell people?
I think one of the most pivotal things about that space was really trying to remind people that they had self-worth. And I think that was one of the biggest things, that we were trying to make women specifically feel confident about themselves. Yes, the product will enhance your looks, but you've got to have this feeling of inner confidence, because makeup can't give you inner confidence. And so I think I learned a lot about, I don't know if I was selling it, but I was learning how to teach that, how to pour into people, how to affirm them, and really make them feel good about themselves. And it was just amazing to me how a little bit of blush, concealer, and eyeshadow and lipstick could make a person change their whole view of themselves within a matter of like 30 minutes. And I think also just connecting with people, I think it helped me build that whole idea about the importance of relationships, because you would get return customers. You wait on someone, you sell them products, they like them, they come back. And those were in that position, we were making commission. So you wanted that commission check. Yeah. You wanted to be able to make those high sales. And so those opportunities for connection were real. And I think it helps support a lot of the work that I do today. It's really, I'm not selling things in the same way, but it's just, understanding products and how to market them. Yeah, for sure.
What's up, everybody? Most of you watching are not subscribed. And I understand you got a lot of things coming at you, but there's only one problem. I want to help you build your freedom. And in order to do that, I need you to come on this journey with me. So let's change that today. Hit the subscribe button, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Now back to the show.
And building relationships, growing people's confidence. That's really cool.
Seeing their worth and value.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're doing this and you're going to school. So why was that important to you, to be parallel, doing one thing, but, going to school is a job in and of itself.
It is.
So what do you think propelled you to do more than just the minimum?
Well, for one, I had to have money.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the natural place, that I didn't want to have a lot of debt when I came out of school. So I didn't take a lot of student loans, and I only took a very small, I think I maybe $2,000 is what I had originally in student loans. And then I found out that I qualified for the Child of Disabled Veterans Act. And so then that ended up paying a lot of the remainder of my college and also some of my grad school. And I think originally I needed money. And so that's how it started initially. But I think also it was the opportunity to, school, I like learning, but school is not always quote unquote fun.
Right.
And so it allowed me to kind of do those things that are more in line with my personality, things that I enjoy. And so it gave me kind of a release from the heavy weight of school.
Right.
And it gave me kind of an outlet to do other things and gave me other perspectives on things that I could do. I'm going to school for education, but I realized that I'm pretty good at selling products. It gave me kind of a business mindset. And learning how to organize, because in retail, you spend a lot of time doing inventory and organizing products and looking at product displays and how to set those things up. And so even though I'm not in that space now, it gave me that idea and that inner respect for organization and people and things being set up strategically and being intentional.
Right.
And really knowing what you're selling, like having product knowledge. We would have to study the products and know what they do, who they are marketed for. That was a huge part of it. And we would go to trainings just to learn products.
Right.
And so it really helps. It helped me understand the importance of that, not just talking about things just to talk about them or being missing, not having all the knowledge that you can. And, I think it really helped with that.
Yeah, to help people solve their problems, you really got to understand the solutions that would solve a certain problem, whether it's skincare or whether it's some other business issue or issue that customers could deal with. So, yeah, I think that's really cool that you had that experience. And I just like the fact that you were doing more than the minimum. You were doing two things at once. And I encourage folks that listen to this to do more than the minimum. You never know, not just the money you might make from it, but also the experiences that you might get that could help you further in your career. So I think that's really cool, because I think that's been a testament to what you've done. Talk about your parents a little bit and how that's impacted you to this point. You're in school, you're working jobs. What did your parents have to do with that? Would you give them any credit? Was it in spite of them? Well,
I'm fortunate enough, as you know, we had great parents. I don't think you always understand the value of the family you've been placed into until you meet other people. You've lived a little bit more life and you understand that what you have is probably more rare than it is common. And so we were fortunate. We had two parents that were college educated. My dad actually was a teacher. And I think a lot of people don't know that. And sometimes I am remiss of talking about that, but he actually did teach. And I remember early on as a kid when he would have students come over to the house and he would tutor them. And I would be literally ear hustling, listening to every single thing he was saying to them. And I would be so intrigued by it, because sometimes his feedback to them was less than, I don't want to say it. It was harsh. It was harsh. And it was just interesting to me how these kids would come back every single week to get more tutoring and training. But it also, it wasn't always harsh. But I saw how he pushed them. And I think that is something that is very true to my core. And I think, I know now I owe him the credit for that. Because he pushed people.
Yeah.
He was not a person where you could just come in and do the minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, he pushed people and he pushed hard.
Yeah.
He was very much like a coach in his mentality. And I think that's how I serve in my job. I'm more coach. I want to help people get better. I want to push them to maybe just a little bit beyond what they think their potential or capacity is. Because I feel like when you stretch for something, you find out you have more capacity than what you even know.
Right.
So that really helped. My mom, a nurse, very knowledgeable and skilled at her level of expertise in her field. And so I think just that ability of doing things well, people will tell me today, your mom was an amazing nurse. Like she knows not only how to be a nurse, but she understands a lot about healthcare. She still does research on medicines and is informed and is constantly learning. So I think from our parents, I learned this whole idea of lifelong learning. Just because you have a position, that's not where the learning stops. It doesn't
Right.
end after the degree. Like, you have to keep pushing. You have to keep, in many ways, just making yourself better, because the more knowledge you have, the more informed you're going to be, but also it provides more access. When they say knowledge is power, I think we say that, but we don't actually really realize what we're saying. Knowledge is not just power. Knowledge provides you access.
Mm.
And it puts you in spaces that maybe your own skill set wouldn't naturally.
Right.
And so I think having that knowledge and pushing for that. So I owe everything to my parents. Our father passed back in 2021. And when I think of the work that I'm doing today, I often reflect on those things that he told us, the way he pushed us, the way he drilled into us. Mitchell's never quit.
Mm-hmm.
And that has really been my foundation in a lot of the work that I've been able to do, because it's built that sense of fortitude, self integrity, but also just grit. There's so many people that do not have a lot of grit in this day and age. And so he really just instilled that into us, and not just him, but my mother as well. And so I will forever be grateful. I owe them all the credit, and really all the credit. And also the fact that we went to private school.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people don't, maybe not be, they're not aware of that. My youngest brother and myself, we went to that school K through 12.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who does that? Who goes to the same school for 12 years?
Right.
But we had this advantage that a lot of other people did not have at that time, because at that time, the private school setting was really offering a better environment
Mm-hmm.
than
Smaller
our
classrooms.
smaller classrooms. It was Christian based, so there was a focus on biblical and foundational type of things. We were learning scripture and things, and just also they had their own idea, or I would say vision for excellence in that space.
Mm-hmm.
We were also being pushed there, and so we just had this great foundation at an early age of really understanding how to show up in this world and be someone who can not only have skill, but also kind of be set apart from others.
Dress codes, things like that.
Yeah, stuff that we hated at the time.
Yeah, you hated at the time. I always say this, that it taught me at least how to interact with white people. I think a lot of black
100%.
people don't know, and a lot of white people don't know how to interact with the opposite race and the tendencies, the nuances, the differences. But like I had some of my best friends were white. So I was in their house, sleeping on their beds, eating their breakfast, and doing the things. And so it becomes like, oh, we're not that much different. Maybe we may have different skins. We may worship differently.
Right.
It may be different tones of voice when you get in trouble. But there is a lot that I learned in that I think was really cool that we did get that experience, especially reflecting back, because
Absolutely.
I know a lot of black people to this day that just didn't grow up around that, and not just white. They just don't know how to interact with different races.
Absolutely.
Their neighborhood was so black, so this, so that. It's like
so homogeneous.
So homogeneous, right? Is probably the proper way to say that. And it's like you don't have any difference or any experience with it, and so it becomes foreign to you when you finally have to deal with that. So that was really cool. So parents, really big influence for you. That's cool. So you do school, you're side hustling. Did you graduate?
I did graduate.
Okay, so you was able to do both.
I was.
And what happened after graduation?
After graduation, I get my first teaching job in Kokomo. Never thought I was going to move to Kokomo. That wasn't even on my radar. I don't even think I knew that there was a Kokomo, Indiana, because there's that song,
Yeah.
From, I don't know.
Kokomo. Yeah.
Yes, that
Beach
one.
Boys,
yes, from the Beach Boys. I thought it was from the Beach Boys. And so, Kokomo is where I ended up. And, you say where I ended up, but I believe that our path has purpose. And I will tell you, I got the best training. And a lot of the things that I do today was really from that foundation of Kokomo Center Schools.
Really?
Little town, not too far east, or so of Muncie. And I spent the 8 years of my career there. I will always be grateful for Kokomo Center Schools because, one, it was the first time I worked in a Title I school because we went to a private school. So I hadn't really experienced poverty at that level. So it was the first time I worked in a school that, had a demographic where there were students of poverty, but also the demographic was very diverse. And I saw the power of being able to be representative of the kids that you serve, because I had never had that as a student. And I actually didn't have that until I was in grad school. I had one professor that was African American. I've never had any other professor, teacher that was any other race except for white. And so that really helped me. But Kokomo Center Schools had a great way of recognizing talent early on. And so as a first-year teacher, I had, some success. I came in strong because I had some foundation. We were from a family of preachers and teachers and nurses, and those careers kind of overlap in skill sets. And so I feel like I came into that first year strong. I really did. I didn't struggle a lot with classroom management because, I've been practicing that, since I was 5.
Since you was 5, yeah.
5 years old. So I already knew how to tell people.
Long overdue.
I had procedures and essential agreements set up before they were even calling it that. And so I already had that, those things going for me. But one of the things that I really appreciate Kokomo Center Schools for is that they allowed me opportunities to start working on professional development from a teacher standpoint early. So in my second year as a teacher in this school district, I was a part of some of the professional development and learning that was happening. And I was able to start presenting at a very early stage of my career. And so I moved from that. I'm teaching. I have this principal. Her name is Linda Singer. Shout out to her. I don't even know I know Linda's retired now, but she had this practice where she would allow people to act as a principal for the day. If she was going to be out at a meeting, she would let you volunteer. And so one of my mentors had done it a couple of times, and she talked about how she really enjoyed it. And I thought, let me try this out. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would, because I really had planned to only teach. I really thought I'm going to teach third grade. I'm going to lock in on third grade. I'm going to teach third grade until I retire. I thought they're going to roll me out in this chair because I loved it that much. I love teaching. I am a teacher at heart. And even in my job now as a principal of an elementary school, I try to find as many opportunities that I can to go back into that teaching space. So I really enjoyed that. But I realized that I kind of liked that level of leadership. It was a little bit beyond the professional development space, and it gave me a bigger classroom, essentially. And so I liked that. And so there was an opportunity that opened up in the district for an administrative assistant. I learned later, they titled it that instead of assistant principal because they wanted me to put my name in the hat, which I really appreciate. It's great when people recognize talent and they start recreating doors so that they can open doors for you. That doesn't always happen, but I had that happen early on in my career. So I was very appreciative of that. So I remember sitting down with the superintendent. His name was Dr. Little at the time. And he told me, listen, we believe in you. We are going to give you this job, but you got to get the degree. I hadn't even thought about working on my leadership degree and getting my master's. I was 5 years into my career at that time. And so, listen, if the superintendent tells you they're going to give you a position, but you got to get the degree, you go get the degree. Yeah. And so I went.
Most of those positions it's required to have a master's level of
it is required.
Education or
yes,
something?
Master's in educational leadership. And then you have to have the principal license. And so you go through the degree and then you take the certification course to get the license. Okay. And so that was unheard of. So I transitioned from a classroom teacher to the middle school environment. You're going from elementary to secondary. Secondary is very different from elementary. And I'm now working with people who the average age is around 40 and I'm in my mid-20s. So these people, most of them are old enough to have a child my age. And now I am their administrator. Right. And I could just see their faces when they introduced me. They're like, this girl don't know a thing about what she's doing. And to be honest, I didn't. Yeah. I mean, I knew a lot about instruction and I had a lot of success and I knew a lot about relationship building, which served me well in that position. And the school that I was working at, we were a feeder school to this new middle school. So coming into it, I knew a lot of the kids because either I had them in third grade or they were at my school. So that gave me an advantage. But I quickly learned that, there's a scripture that says your gift will make room for you.
Mhm.
And that is true. And the staff quickly learned that even though it didn't look like I had the experience to be in that position was really perfect for me.
Wow.
And I stretched to that position. And I found ways to be in that space and do what I knew how to do. Because I think a lot of times we miss out on that. We're in some other place. We know that we're really not as qualified. And then we start trying to do all these other things that we don't have expertise in.
Right.
And so if you're in the space, that means somebody believed that you should be in the space. And so then you do what you're good at. What was
Okay.
I good at? Good at teaching,
Mhm.
good at serving, good at building relationships. So that became the thing that I did.
Yeah.
That's what I worked on. I got really good at building relationships. And quickly people saw, oh, she really does know. And she can manage kids. And it would be hallway duty. Kids would be fighting and I would just get in the middle of them. I would never do that now. I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. And they would move. They would stop the fight,
Yeah.
And in middle school, especially girls, they fight rough.
Yeah.
But they would. And I think there was a respect that I was able to earn because of the way in which I was willing to serve
Mhm.
that people identified with. And to this day, some of those individuals in that space, they still reach out to me and, talk about my leadership at that time. And that's what I did. So
That's awesome.
One of the biggest questions people are always asking me is, how do you do all that? Stephen, how do I work a 9-to-5 job and have a side hustle and manage my family? It's a lot, I know, but I want to help you understand how to do that. And that's why we created the free side hustle starter kit. I think everybody should have a side hustle. Even the Bible talks about having more than one stream of income and planting your seed in multiple places. I want to help you get there the right way. Look, it's not going to be easy. And sometimes it's very difficult and you want to give up. But if you get with a community of people that believe in what you believe, that break all those limiting mindsets and limiting beliefs about what you think you can't do, then you have a better chance of winning overall. And I'm not going to tell you it's going to be quick, but I will tell you that you will not regret it if you come on this journey with me. Click the link below or go to the website and get your free side hustle starter kit today.
What would be your piece of advice to aspiring new teachers?
new teachers.
Somebody that's getting into the space for the first time. I know it's a totally different climate now, but what would be, if you had one piece of advice for them, what would you tell them?
Be open to feedback. You got to be open.
Mm.
You got to understand that you don't know everything. Even if you come in strong, teaching is one of the best professions because you never really tap out. There's always something you can learn. There's always something you can get better at. And just be open to feedback. Feedback doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something wrong. It's a way to get better.
Mm.
Sometimes you might be doing something quote unquote wrong, but that's not a negative. That's really, feedback allows you that positive place to improve.
Right.
And I think a lot of people go in and people have gotten really sensitive now and they only want to hear praise.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not cognizant of the fact the way you grow is by getting feedback that is, targeted and specific on your areas of deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Praise is for those things that you were doing well.
Yeah.
And even if someone's not praising you for the things that you're doing well, you probably already know what you're doing well. So
Mhm.
praise yourself.
Yeah.
Be proud of the things that you already can do, but be open to feedback. Because I think a lot of people miss out on opportunities to really grow and be stretched and really expand their skill set because
They're closed off. to
they're
it.
closed off to it because they see any critique as criticism.
Mm.
And it's not. If your leader really cares about you, if your colleagues really care about you, they're going to try to help support you through feedback.
Through feedback. That's awesome. Okay, so moving on, you're doing this job, middle school. What's next? You're 5 years in, you go back to school again, you get the degree,
Mhm.
you're in the role that the superintendent made for you. What happens next in your career?
Okay, so then I ended up moving back to moving to Indianapolis area because I got married and I needed a job. I knew I strategically moved to this area called Westfield that's north of Indianapolis because I thought if I did not find a job in the Indy area, Kokomo was a decent commute. It wasn't going to be too far of a drive. So I end up doing that. I find a job in the Carmel area, Carmel Clay schools, very affluent. So I go from working in high poverty Title I schools to affluent. It's comical to me because one of the schools that I worked at the second year was their Title I school with 18% poverty.
Wow.
I'm coming from places where it's 60, 70, 80%, and they have 18%.
And that's a problem.
And they're struggling.
Yeah.
I was like, y'all, this is not real poverty over here. This is like people would kill to have to be in this space. And so, but what I loved about being in Carmel, and I sometimes I'm not always really good about talking about that space, as I've spent so much time in Title I schools. The best thing that I learned about working in affluent schools is that kids are the same, parents are the same. All kids deserve great education. All parents want the same things. What's different is how they advocate for it. In more affluent spaces, they know they're supposed to have it. They feel entitled to it. So they're going to be very upfront about asking for it.
For stuff like, just to make it, simple for the rest of us, I need my kid to have extra time on a test, or I need them to have a better lunch option, or I need them to be on the baseball team, that type of thing. They're more upfront. Forcing the conversation.
Some of the things that you mentioned are not things that they can really change, but they're very much advocates.
Okay.
They will make sure that their
request that is known.
The request is made known. They request teachers. I mean, they will just tell you, I want to have so and so.
Yeah. Period.
As if you better do it or else. And so they're very vocal about that. But there are individuals from, schools with lower socioeconomic status. They advocate too. They just advocate in different ways. And what their advocacy, it looks different. They're coming in there if they feel like a teacher has wronged their child in some way. And it's really the same on both ends of the spectrum, but they come in more from a very
responsive or reactionary,
sometimes more reactionary. And sometimes it's warranted, but a lot of times it's not. Come in more with the defenses up. And but they show up. They show up, especially if there's a party or a celebration. They're going to be there.
Yeah.
They come because that's something that they value. And I think that's something that they feel like, if I can't do anything else, I may not be the smartest person. I may not have a lot of resources, but this is a way that I can show up. So when they do show up, they show up all the way.
Okay.
And so I think that was just important to know, because I think sometimes when you're in a certain space, you want to be in other spaces. But I think the knowledge is everybody wants the same thing. All parents, every parent wants their child to have a really good teacher. Some just don't know how to advocate for it, or sometimes they don't know where the good teachers are.
Right.
But everybody wants the same thing, and kids are the same.
Really?
They really are.
Rich or poor?
They're the same. They all want to learn. They all sometimes have areas of, gaps in learning, discrepancies, challenges, and poorly behave, making poor decisions. Not all of them have good social emotional awareness on how to deal with their anger and things like that. It's widespread.
But out of the foundation, they want to learn.
Every child wants to learn.
And so, like, knowing that is something, right? Because if you start to see poor behavior, this kid don't want to learn.
Yeah.
They want to be bad.
Exactly.
They are bad.
Right.
They this, they that, they that. When
exactly.
You're forgetting that at the foundation, they all want to learn.
They all want to learn.
Yeah, that's pretty.
They all want to learn. And not only do they all want to learn, they all want to achieve. A lot of times they don't hear a lot about achievement. It's not prioritized. It's not being maybe pushed at home as much. And it's definitely not being maybe pushed enough as it should be in the school space of really showing them this is where you should be. And so they're okay with it.
Yeah.
But this mindset that they don't want to learn, they don't want to achieve, they don't want to excel, that's ambiguous because they do.
It's not true.
It's not true at all.
Okay. So this is cool. So you're in this new school. You've learned this about, you're now in the most affluent school you've ever been in. What happened? And you're recently married. all these sort of things. Obviously, I know something about your life, but what happens during this time, and how does this unfold, this new opportunity?
So I'm in school first year, great, having great success. They decide they're going to move me to another school. And I was the only assistant principal at the time working at 2 different buildings. So between both buildings, I'm serving 800 in one, 700 in another.
Wow.
You do the math of that. A lot of kids.
You're the assistant principal for 2 different.
2 different buildings.
Wow.
2 different buildings. In that district at that time, assistant principals were not on an administrative contract. They were on a teaching contract with additional pay. And so part of my job was supposed to supervise this university program, and that fell through that year. And so they found out, hey, she's over there working full time, getting pay, and she's not doing the teaching part of her job. So then they decide, great idea, we'll put you at a school with a principal who needs help.
Wow.
I thought it was a great opportunity. And the principal where I was going thought it was a great idea too, until the next year it shifts and I'm there full time. And then that became a little bit of, I don't want to share the stage with this individual. And so for the first time in my career, I really experienced what it's like when somebody doesn't want you in their space and how they can make it very difficult for you and try to get you to come to the conclusion that they don't want you there and they want you to resign. And that was some of the most challenging. That was a very challenging year for me because I'm a worker. I'm a high performer. I've never had a bad evaluation. I had my first poor evaluation, and it wasn't anything about my actual work. They were attacking my character. And so that was difficult.
Yeah.
I never experienced that. I come from a previous district where I'm on a name basis with the superintendent, and then I moved to this other district, and they're trying to, after 1 year, move me out.
Right.
And what other people don't know is that I was a finalist for a principal's job that first year that I was there. So they go from saying, we're going to give you a principal's job, we think you're that dynamic, to we no longer believe in you in this role. And if you want to say as a teacher, you can, but you probably should go ahead and resign.
Be demoted or leave.
Yes.
And you should leave, actually.
Yes, and you should leave. And they tell me this in December.
Wow.
So with the hope that I will leave and then go find something else, it's December.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for a job in December.
Right.
And so they asked me, is this going to be a problem for you? And I had to humble myself, humble my pride. My feelings were crushed. They were hurt. And I said, it absolutely will not. And they were like, well, how are you going to work? Know that you're not coming back to this position. And I looked at them dead in their face and I said, it won't be a problem. And I made it my mission at that point that if you tell me something about my character that's not true, instead of pouting or doing less or doing the minimum, I'm going to go above and beyond, and I'm going to show you that what you think about me is not true, to the point that you're going to regret you ever said that about me, because I'm going to show you that I'm going to elevate my work to the highest level that I can. And that's what I did.
Wow.
I started showing up early. I'd be there early. I'm not an early person. You already know that about me. I'm not. I would come early. I'd stay late. I did everything that I could do because I wanted them to know. And some of it was my pride. I wanted them to know, hey, no, you have misjudged me. But I also felt like I owed it to myself, and I owed it to those students who had developed relationships with me and who had loved me, that I needed to show up for them. And that no matter that the adults in this space thought that I shouldn't be there, I knew I needed to be there for those students, and I needed to show up. It's hard when a leader transitions in the middle of the year.
Right.
And in some schools, there is a constant turnover of leadership. And that has its impact on the teachers, but also on the students themselves. And so I just said, I'm going to do it.
Wow,
and
that's an amazing response. So how does that end? You end up having to leave the job.
So I ended up leaving the job. They told me I can come back as a teacher. Yeah. And I had decided that's what I would do. But it just never felt like that's where I was supposed to be. I just did not feel like it. I don't have anything against teaching.
But it was crazy. I mean, you go from about to be a principal to now you're a teacher again.
And it seems like I'm, that's a step backwards. And for me, it was just more so that I just didn't feel like that was where I was supposed to be.
Right.
And honestly, do you really want to be in a district that, has lost their faith in you.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going to, I started applying for principal jobs everywhere I could. I'm getting jobs. I'm getting interviews. I'm a finalist. Not one time, 2 times, 3 times. I'm a finalist. I'm starting to feel good about myself. I'm like, hey.
I am good, regardless
Listen,
of what they said.
Regardless of what y'all said. I am good, but I didn't land the job. A finalist doesn't mean you're the final candidate.
Right.
So, I'm a finalist several times, but I don't get the position. And so then I really, that was hard. That was really hard, because I'm sitting here like, I'm either going to go back to be a classroom teacher, or I'm going to go back to being a classroom teacher. And then a really good friend of mine ended up getting a job at a school that I had applied for, that they told me the job was closed. And now the posting says it's open, but they said the job is closed. And I didn't know at the time that my good friend had applied for it. She not only applied for it, she got the job. And then a week before school starts, someone that they decide they're going to put this new program, Reading Impact Teacher, funded through Title I. And they decide that they're going to put someone in that position, and that person quits 5 days before school starts.
Wow.
So she calls me up.
You about to go start at the other school?
I'm about to go start at the other school. I've already met with the team of teachers. I've moved a few desks around in the space, all the while thinking, I am not supposed to be here. This does not feel right.
Wow.
And so then I had to go to that principal and tell her, and I told her all along when it came up early on that I was interviewing for that job,
right,
and all the things. And she was very supportive. And one thing I will say, and how things come full circle, and that's why, not letting people tell you what your character is, but showing them what your character is so important. They had to get a letter of reference for me from my previous employer. Because I had done my job so well after being told we don't have any faith, or basically that we're not that interested in you anymore, is how they said it.
Right.
She had no choice but to write me a letter of recommendation. She wrote me a glowing letter of recommendation, because I think she felt bad for how she had treated me, how the things that she had said.
Yeah.
And I got a glowing letter of recommendation. Just happened to be the assistant superintendent in that new district was a personal friend of hers. And so she talked me up and said, yeah, you guys need to take her. You be, basically crazy not to. And so I get that job. I'm working for one of my really close friends. I'm a Reading Impact teacher, and I'm having great success. Literacy's always been a passion of mine, and so I'm doing the work. And because it's a really good friend of mine, I have administrative experience. She's new in the job. The school needed a transformation. She's letting me do a lot of things outside of my role, because she knows that I have administrative background. I had actually been an assistant principal and she had not. And so she's letting me do a lot of things. And so I got a lot of training ground in those years that I was there.
Right.
During that time early on, principal jobs were coming open in the new district. I'm applying for them, but I can't even get a second interview. These people, they don't know me that well. And, they just said no.
Nope, not worthy.
How do I not get a second interview? Are you kidding me? But I realize that sometimes we blame what's happening and we forget it may not be the right time.
Right.
And what I didn't know is that about 2 years into that new job, I would be getting divorced. I have 2 young children at the time, 1.5 and 2.5. Having an administrative job with a 1.5 and a 2.5-year-old living an hour away from where my family and support group was, and having all that pressure.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It wouldn't have worked.
Having a 1.5 and a 2-year-old in any circumstance is pressure, let alone when you don't have no support. You're going through a broken marriage and
all the things.
All these things. It's almost impossible. So what looked like a disappointment ended up being like, no, this is for what I was about to go through, this is the perfect pause.
Absolutely.
I didn't need the responsibility that would have come with an admin role at this time.
Absolutely. It seemed like a setback, but it was a divine setup.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And it was a great time to really get really good at my skill set. One of the things that people give me a lot of credit for is being a very strong instructional leader. Well, in that role of being a literacy impact teacher, and then that role transferred to what we now call an instructional coach, all I did for 12 years was watch people teach, be in their spaces, help support them, give feedback, critique, do professional development. Those are all things that strong building leaders do.
Yeah.
And I had 12 years of that.
Wow.
So it was a great time to really just fine tune my skill.
Mm.
And then I wasn't taking a whole lot of time away from my girls.
Yeah.
I'm not grading papers at night because I'm not a classroom teacher. I'm helping supporting the work. I'm doing a lot of planning and getting things ready and resources for teachers. But it also allowed me in that single mom space to be able to parent.
Wow.
So
it comes to me that sometimes our disappointment is divine.
it is.
Like you're supposed to be disappointed, and it's supposed to feel as disappointing as disappointment feels.
Absolutely.
But even with all that, it can still be divine because you never know what's next. Okay, let's get to some of the good stuff. You blow past that time of life, you make it through, and we don't have the time to really dig into how you did it. I'm sure prayer, fasting, friendships, everything possible,
Therapy
to get through, a little medicine, whatever you had to do.
Yeah, true.
To get through that time, but you finally end up getting a principal role. So tell us about that.
Yep. So I get a principal role in 2020.
Wow. In the middle of a pandemic.
Absolute worst time to start as a building level principal. I mean, anybody would arguably say, not the best time.
Yeah.
And again, I had convinced myself that I didn't even want the principalship because of so much disappointment and being turned down for it multiple times.
Yeah.
And so at this, this opportunity opens up in the district. People are asking me, you're going to apply for the assistant principal's job because the assistant principal at the building is probably going to get the principal job, and then you can just apply for the assistant principal.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, no, I'm not. And that was the first time I had that confidence to say, no, I'm not.
Right.
I've already been an assistant principal.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the people who were in the applicant pool, I had more experience as an instructional coach and as an assistant principal than they had in whatever they had been doing.
Right.
And so I'm going to throw my name in the hat,
Yeah.
And then I moved through the interview process. I had 5 interviews. So I go from not being called back for an interview to having 5 interviews.
Yeah.
I'm like, how many more interviews do I need to have? And so I get the principal's job. I start in 2020, and I realized at that moment that starting in 2020 was pivotal because it didn't matter that I was a first-year principal because all principals were doing things that they had never done before.
Right.
So my lack of experience did not matter because nobody was experienced at this.
Yeah.
And so I came in like I had been there all the time because we're all doing things new, all trying to figure things out.
Right.
What I was good at that set me apart or of the people that were in my group is I had such strong background in instructional leadership. So while people were figuring out how to manage space, set up dividers
Virtuals
and cleaning, we had sanitizer from, we had
mask. Everything had a mask on it.
Everything had a mask on it. Books had masks on it. I remember they literally backed up a semi truck with just wipes. We had so many. We still got those wipes. We had so many wipes. And so
whoever sold them wipes made a bankroll.
They made a bankroll. Thank you, Lysol.
Hey, do you like what you're hearing? If so, let's not stop here. Click the link below and join my email list so I can come and provide you valuable information about your mindset, about the market, about everything you need to build your freedom. Click the link. Let's start today.
But yes, and so it actually was so strategic because then I'm able to go in where most people might be struggling. I'm actually excelling because I'm not just working on managerial things. I'm starting to tap into instructional things. So simultaneously while managing, I'm working on instruction. So I'm taking a building that is the lowest performing school in the district. I'm coming from the highest performing. This is the lowest performing.
Wow.
And I had been at the previous school when we were a lower performer. We weren't the lowest, but we were a lower performer. And so I already had the equation for how you get this work done. So I was able to transfer that into the new space. And, after year 1, we're experiencing a little bit of growth. Year 2, more growth. By year 3, we're like the 4th highest performing.
Wow.
Fast forward next year, 3rd highest performing. Fast forward, 2nd highest performing.
Wow.
And really, when you look at our demographic of the kids we serve in schools that are similar to us, and that's really the data set we should be looking at, not all the schools,
Right.
we're the highest performing.
Wow.
And it happened in that short amount of time. And research tells you it takes 3 to 5 years to get real change. That's what they tell you in educational leadership. You can't change something that fast.
Mm-hmm.
But what I understood is that yes, you can. And it also can be sustainable when you're working on something that you are skilled for.
Wow.
And so then I understood that those 12 years, that was not wasted time. That was preparation. I was basically in a lab like a scientist, fine-tuning, experimenting, getting things to work so that I could now take them and use that action research in the new space and actually start to get some results.
That's crazy. So you went from the lowest to essentially the top performing.
One of the top performing.
So, okay, let me ask you some questions that I think parents want to know. So before I get to that, was that not intimidating? Did you even want the job when you found out it was the lowest performing school? Was you like, I don't know if I want this?
Yes. Because when you're at the highest performing school, you're not really looking at everybody else's data. You're looking at the people like right underneath you, but you're not going all the way down the list.
To the bottom.
No, you're not. And so when I got there, there were some other things that were challenging about the school. Because traditionally, years ago, the interesting thing about this school that sometimes I forget to tell people, I had visited Spring Mill Elementary when I was a teacher in Kokomo. Because they were doing some new practices that were very innovative at the time. So this school used to be one of the highest performing schools in the district. And I had actually gone there as a classroom teacher to go see what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I love how life comes full circle. You know, I wouldn't have thought then that I would later be the principal of that same building that I'm walking around as a classroom teacher.
Right.
And so when I got over there, I'm like, what have y'all been doing? I mean,
what happened?
46% pass is not a goal. Like, because we set goals based on performance, each year. And they'll tell you in education that you don't want to go 2 to 3% higher.
Yeah.
How do you set a goal for you? I mean, you only want 42% of the kids to pass?
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah. I had never really seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And so it was intimidating. It was sad, on some levels. But the difference was, and it started virtual, so I hadn't met the kids yet. I had met them virtually. I mean, you're watching them on a screen. But when the kids came in person for the first time, I think that was like October, I'm looking at the kids. This is not a 40% school, 42% school. I've been at a lot of schools. This should not be 42%. And so I really just said, we got to change it up.
Right.
Like, we got to start focusing on what's important. First of all, we have to tell kids what the goal is. Do they even know?
Yeah. That they're at 42%.
Do they even know they're at 42%?
Yeah.
Then teachers were like, well, we don't want to tell them that because they're going to feel bad. They should feel bad. This is unacceptable. Unacceptable. And kids were shocked. I mean, literally, I would sit down with kids and I would look at their data from years before. And then I would look at, where they're supposed to be. And literally, they would be like, huh? Yeah, you're here. You're supposed to be here. And they were shocked and they were bothered by it.
Yeah, because they didn't know.
They didn't know. And so we started to see a little bit of that achievement start to move up, just inch up, just by having the conversation.
Just by telling them you're underachieving.
Just by telling them you're underachieving. This is where you are and this is where you should be.
Regardless of feelings, or were kids' feelings hurt, or was that not even was that a non?
They were shocked.
They were shocked.
I think if anything, they were upset, but they weren't upset because they felt like something that they couldn't do. They were upset because they're like, I can do better than this.
Right.
And so we started doing some goal setting. And so I started doing it as the building principal, but then that became a practice that all teachers started to do. And so we started to be way more intentional about when we enter an assessment window, we're not going to not tell kids what they're shooting for. We're going to be very intentional about this. We're going to tell them where they should be. And every time a kid makes it, we're going to celebrate. And so then we started seeing in the space data walls. And we didn't have to put kids' names up there. There's all kinds of ways, to do it in a way that is not personal. Because I think that's what teachers, I think it came from a good place. They didn't want kids, they didn't want to, make
hurt
kids
people's feelings.
Yeah, hurt kids' feelings and make it feel like there's something you're doing wrong per se.
Right.
And so I think the intent was good, but the outcome was not right.
Terrible.
It was just terrible.
So let me ask you this, and I'm going to come back. I want to ask you about how parents need to find the right type of schools and all that. But
Okay.
before I do that, I also want to ask you how to get to excellence. So what you're describing to me sounds like principles, practices, even just that small example there that aren't just applicable at a school. Like that could be applicable anywhere. If you got a sales organization and they don't know that the target is, $50 million a month and they're hitting 20 and they think they're doing good because $20 million a month is a lot and that's great. Yeah. But if the target's 50, then you're missing it.
The target is 50.
Right.
You gotta hit 50.
You got to let people know that. So, and the reason I say that is what excellence principles would you say, and try to whittle it down to 3. What are 3 excellence principles you say worked at your school and could probably work in other places?
I would think first, changing the mindset. Like you got to look at your mindset. Excellence is a mindset before it's ever an action. Okay. We start attacking actions. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. If you don't believe it can be, and if the people in your space don't believe it can be, it doesn't matter what you put in place. There has to be alignment to what you think versus what you do. It needs to match. So that's the first thing. Accountability.
Yeah.
People don't do what you expect. They do what you inspect. You got to hold people accountable, which means you got to be visible. You got to be out. You got to be watching. You got to be noticing. And you've got to know who your top performers are.
Yeah.
We took our teachers and we ranked them. We ranked them just like we look at student data. We ranked our teachers and said, who is where? We started putting data in a very open way. I'm going to tell you the teachers did not like that. But we started putting it out there.
Yeah.
This is our school goal. This is what your class performed. And if it didn't hit our school goal, your box was in red.
Yeah.
And it was stayed in red until it hit the school goal.
Wow.
And so initially people,
they was pissed.
They did not like seeing their name on that report. But did it motivate them?
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
And then when we had the conversations, also how you wrap the conversation. I would say in those first couple of years, I wasn't probably as good at wrapping the conversation because we had done this before at our previous school. And so this was just common practice. Everybody knew that, because we had been doing it for years. And so then, after year 1 or 2, I scaled back and told them, this is not personal. This is a professional conversation. This has
because people are seeing red and they think I'm red.
Yeah. You're not red.
I'm in the negative.
But your instruction is red.
Your instruction's red.
And so how do we get better at the instruction? What can we help support you? And then as we started to see growth and we started to group it by grade level, how can you help your grade level? Because if you have somebody in your grade level who's green versus red, if green is, the opposite color of someone who's performing, then you need to be getting with them, talking to them about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Sharing strategies. And we move from this is just my class to these are our kids. Okay. More shared responsibility. So then we started seeing things like teams started doing flexible grouping amongst the grade level.
Okay.
So I'm working with your kids, you're working with my kids, we're working all together, we're building trust that I know that if I send my children to you for an intervention that I can trust that you're going to be doing something similar to what I'm doing as far as making sure that it meets the standard. And so that's how things started to shift.
And that all wraps into accountability.
Accountability. That's accountability.
Now we're accountable not only to our head person and not only to what we feel like are our kids, but now you're like accountable to everybody in the building.
Absolutely.
And it's visible and it's out there.
Yes.
It's not some hidden like under the desk thing. Everyone knows that you missed the 3-pointer. Like it's out there.
Everybody knows. And it's not punitive. Just because it's out there, it's not punitive. It is what we're working towards. It's just visible. Because you can't attack something that you don't know exists. And so it's out there. We share that not just with our teachers, custodians, cafeteria staff,
really,
secretaries, share it with everybody in the building.
What's the thought behind that?
Because it's an investment for everyone. I want the custodian to know when you're cleaning these classrooms and when you're being very mindful and intentional about keeping our space clean and safe, that is helping us focus on achievement.
Yeah.
When you're greeting kids in the cafeteria, making sure that they're fed well and making sure that they have what they need, then that is supplying or fixing or addressing a basic need, so that when they leave your space, they can go back into the classroom and learn.
So if you feeding them slop, that's gonna hurt their ability to focus on learning, because they didn't want it, or they ate it and got sick, or they didn't eat it at all and they're still hungry. Like
it's probably more the latter. We're not really serving slop, but I think the whole idea behind it is that every position matters, and everybody has to be focused on achievement, because everybody has to know that your part, even though it may seem insignificant, it contributes to the greater goal.
Yeah.
You know, how we greet parents in the office, how we, talk to parents about if their child is tardy. You sign your child in. We need to be asking them why they're late. Doesn't have to be nasty, but we need to ask, because we need the parents to know there has to be a sense of urgency. Learning starts at this time, and if your child is consistently tardy, then they're probably missing out on part of the learning. And as little people, younger humans, they don't have the ability to reset themselves or know, oh, math just happened, and now I'm walking into science, so now I've got to reframe my brain around. They don't know what time of day their schedule is. They don't have that schedule memorized. And if they're coming at different times all the time, they're losing big chunks. And so it's really that whole all-in mentality that everyone here, we're working for the same goal.
That's powerful.
And that is achievement, because we owe it to ourselves to be in a space where we prioritize excellence and we prioritize achievement, because we're not going to just say we believe our kids can achieve. We're going to make sure that this space is conducive for achievement.
And so if I'm running a totally different organization, let's say I'm running a, horse racing group, getting the information out there, whatever those targets are, whatever the goal is, if the goal is achievement, what achievement looks like, who's doing it well, where we need to grow, how we can learn from each other, all that needs to be visible. The goal needs to be visible so we can hold each other accountable.
For all stakeholders.
Yep. From the janitor to the principal and everybody in between. Yeah.
To the families and communities. When families come for events, I share the achievement. I give them the goals, because I want them to know you're a very important partner in this work.
Wow.
That's
and powerful.
It's been great to see parents who celebrate, when we tell them when they've seen our achievement grow in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
They believe in the school. They're telling their friends about it.
Wow.
Because it's important.
Yeah, that's
important.
Good.
So you asked me for 3 things. I said
the first one. Well, the second one was accountability. We just dealt with that one. What was the first one? I forgot. What was the first? It was so good. I got to go back. I got to go back and look at it.
Oh my gosh.
But we talked about what did we talk about? So we got to know the goal. We have to let people know where they're at. I think it was the students. People didn't even know they were missing the targets, and then holding them accountable to the targets.
Holding them accountable.
So it's kind of both, right? So you talked about making sure people are aware that we're not doing a good job.
Exactly.
Was that the first point? Somewhere around the first point?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I know it's been a long day.
This is where my age shows up. I'm like,
y'all
I
have
don't remember.
To watch the tape. Y'all can figure
Watch
out.
the tape.
Rewind.
Yes. Rewind.
Have you ever felt like you were just stuck? Just like you weren't completely free? Kind of like in a cage, and you can't do exactly what you want to do or really accomplish the dreams you want to accomplish? Well, I felt that way too, until I learned how to create freedom for myself. And the best part about it, I didn't have to quit my 9-to-5 job. I didn't have to leave my family. I didn't have to forsake all of my friends. I just made simple steps to start really finding out, how can I build freedom for myself? How can I promote myself? How can I make decisions for myself and for my future that I can be proud of? And I want to help you do that. This Fuel Your Freedom Challenge is all about helping you get the tools so you can put the gas behind your dreams, put the pedal behind your hopes and behind your goals. I want to help you do that. I'm excited that you're here. Click the link. Let's get signed up, and I'll see you on the other side. Fuel your freedom. Get ready. It's happening soon.
And I
but
think
what would be your third point?
The last thing I want to talk about is that partnership, which kind of goes to what we're talking about, already.
Yeah.
But really finding ways to be intentional about who you're partnering with.
Mm-hmm.
And that really goes to branding. What is the brand?
Mm-hmm.
And does every part of your organization represent that?
Okay.
You know, how are you getting that brand out there? If I say that this is a school of excellence, it's got to show up in everything, from the school grounds to the way we answer the phone, to the way we conduct meetings, to, you know, to the way we conduct programs. We start our programs on time,
Yeah.
and we end early.
Wow.
Because I want people to know that if I tell you it's going to be 30 minutes and you take time out of your day, and we know parents are busy,
Yes.
it's not going to go over. We're going to start on time.
Yeah.
It has driven some teachers nuts, because if it says, if the time says 8:10, I'm starting at 8:10. Your class is walking in, it's going to be embarrassing.
Right.
And it's helped. People don't come late because they know. Because I want to honor the fact that families are making an investment. When we're inviting them in to see something, to celebrate something with us, I want to honor that time, because they could be anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to leave jobs, get off from work.
Right.
And if you're going
Through
to
traffic.
Exactly. And if you're going to take that time to show up for your student like that, or show up for your child in this space, I want to honor that.
Right.
And so
It puts
making
you
sure that
on
happens.
brand. So that whole brand of excellence, it becomes who we are. So talk about the phone thing, because you told me this off camera, but so what was happening with the phones? It was a very simple thing.
It was just random. It was like, hello, depending on who you had answering it.
Hey, what's up?
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't
Yo.
It wasn't that bad. But it was more so this
What you want?
It wasn't excellent, okay?
Okay, yeah.
It'd be like, hello, welcome to Spring Mill. And sometimes, honestly, the phone would just ring, ring, ring.
Yeah.
That is annoying to people.
Yeah.
I know, even on the other side, if I call the doctor's office and nobody picks up,
Yeah.
I'm already hot. By the time I call back, I got an attitude. Like, answer the phone. Isn't somebody getting paid to answer the phone?
Right.
And so I think just being really intentional. So what we started doing was, instead of just saying, hello, this is Spring Mill, or hello, this is, Miss So-and-so, we have taught our staff, and everybody that's in the front office knows this. And when we interview people, that's one of the questions I ask them. How would you answer the phone? Because it matters, because the phone could be the initial contact. People start they start forming opinions about your school immediately.
Yeah,
and so they can start that just from the phone conversation.
Yeah, what is it? You don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
You don't. And so what we do, we say, it's a great day at Spring Mill. How may I help you? This is Miss So-and-so.
Yeah.
And everybody does it. Why? Because we say it's a great day. Why? Because if we put that intentionality out there that is a great day, it has to be a great day. I will tell you, a lot of the days are not great,
Right.
but we still say it's a great day.
Yeah.
Because it's important to put that intention out in the atmosphere, and we want people to feel like it's a great day.
Yeah. And that's
Even
our
if the
brand.
place feels like it's falling apart, it's a
Yeah.
great day. It's a great day because we are intentional about excellence, and so it's a great day. It's a great day at Spring Mill.
Yeah. Cheerful. We're forcing it. We're making it. Even if the day's gone bad, we're getting back up to that standard.
We get back up to that standard.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Purpose about our inflection in our voice, because you can say, it's a great day at Spring Mill.
It's a great day, Spring Mill. How can I help you?
It's a great day at Spring Mill. This is Mrs. Martin. How can I help you?
Yeah.
Has a different feel.
So what was it like when you took something so what would seemingly be minuscule, like, man, you trying to tell me how to answer the phone? Like, what's your problem? Like, what was the reaction?
There was a little pushback.
Yeah.
But I realized that the pushback wasn't just because they didn't want to answer the phone differently. It's just like, why do we have to do this? And so putting that intention out and stating the why was very strategic and very intentional. And I had to learn that early on in my leadership. Sometimes people are resisting things, not just because they want to resist it. They don't understand why. You haven't been clear and upfront about the why. And so when I reminded them, we're rebranding. We want people to believe in this school like they once did years ago when I came here as a classroom teacher. We're rebuilding the brand, and that starts with everything. And so then when they wouldn't do it, I just remind them, oh, remember we answer, it's a great day at Spring Mill. And then for about a week, I made sure that I was in that front office. And so I was answering the phone. No, not all day. Took time out of my day. I'm in there. I'm modeling it for you.
So not only inspecting it, by
modeling
being
it,
there,
by
by
modeling.
seeing it, but I'm also modeling it.
Yes,
Showing you, no, this is the way
absolutely.
that we do it.
Because I want to assume positive intent. I want to assume that if you're not doing something, it's because it's unclear. You maybe don't really know how. Maybe you feel like you need support. I'm not going to just automatically think you're being insubordinate.
Okay.
And I think sometimes we jump to that. No, sometimes people just don't know. You
Yeah.
haven't been explicit.
Mm.
And so by modeling and showing them and supporting them and reminding with
Wow.
grace, that just helps people be more intentional.
That's good leadership too, because it's like, hey, it's not, we get so ready to be like, I can't stand these employees. I can't stand these people I got, but have you been clear with them?
Yeah, have you been explicit?
Have you been explicitly clear as to this is how we do it? This is
Absolutely.
how we, down to answering the phone,
Mhm.
down to the inflection in your voice.
Absolutely.
There is a right way, and this is it. We have a brand, and this is the way we do it.
Mhm.
So that's strong leadership. That's awesome. Okay, I know we're running out of time. Tell us 3 things that parents need to do to pick good schools, to help schools be good.
Okay. Do your research.
Mm-hmm.
Do your research. Even if you're at public school and you already know that that is your school, because a lot of times for public schools, you go to the school that's in your boundary. So even if public school is an option for you, take a tour of the school. Call and ask the school, do they allow families to tour? Take a tour of the school.
Okay.
You're going to get a whole different impression of the school just by showing up, walking the space. That can help inform your choice. So tour the school.
That's not a foreign thing. That's a best practice. If
It's a best. Every good school, I would say, schools that are focused on excellence, they will allow you to tour.
Gotcha.
They
Okay.
want you to see it.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't choose them, they want that brand. They want that branding out there.
Mm.
You know, because word of mouth is what sells everything. That's marketing 101.
Yeah.
And so ask to do a tour.
Come do a tour.
Second of all, make sure that once you have a school, that you are making an investment in getting to know the leadership at that school, whether that be the principal, that's great. But the first leader in a school setting, if you are a parent and you have a child, is that teacher, that classroom teacher. Get to know them.
Mm.
Get to know them on an individualized level that is healthy. Like,
Yeah.
don't be going on just on their Facebook and trying to stalk and see what they do on their weekends, but really try to make an investment. You know, ask questions, find out, what do they like? What do they dislike? Why did they choose teaching as a career? Why did they choose to work at this particular school? What do they like about the school?
Mm.
Ask them, what's the top 3 things that you love about teaching? What's the top 3 things that you love about working here? That's
Mm.
important. That helps you know their level of investment. It gives you a lot of insight and perspective on the type of individual that they are and possibly the teacher that they can be.
Mm. Yeah.
And then show up for your students, not just on things that matter to kids like birthdays. And sometimes, you know, it's given where you are, schools may not allow that,
Mhm.
but show up in ways that are not just celebratory. It's great when you come to, you know, if they have sports, it's great if you come to those things. It's great if you come to the awards programs, if they allow that. It's great when you show up with a tray of treats
Yeah.
for the winter party or the Valentine's party. Those are great things. I mean, and some people, that's their entry point. That's how they show up. That's what they know.
Mhm.
But volunteer if you can. Be a
Okay.
part of the parent-teacher organization if they have one. You know, show up. You may not be able to do every event, but show up. Take the time to have that initial investment.
Mm.
That is very important. But also show up for your students at home for your child, I should say, at home by finding out the work that they're doing and taking some time to put an investment in with the work. Help with homework 1 night a week. Read a book.
Mm.
I'm gonna tell you right now, some of that 5th grade math is difficult.
Yeah.
It is. It's new. And so people say, you know, I'm not really that good at math. That's okay. You know, turn on Khan Academy and watch it. You know, watch the lesson with them. There are lots of resources that we can use. You can probably, you know, look up some things on YouTube, or you can reach out to the teacher and say, hey, I'm not really for sure how to do this work. Can you maybe show me an example? Send home a key. I really would like to spend some time working with my kids on their homework. I made an investment.
Send me the answers, teacher, so I can help
Please,
my
so I can
child.
support. But I think we're not as cognizant of that. You know, it's all like, you know, the teacher needs to do that. The teacher needs to do that. Teachers are doing a lot, but we also need parents to do their part as well.
Have you seen that drop off in your history, or has it always been that parents don't really engage maybe at the level they should?
I think that it's definitely dropped off in this newer climate where kids have access to a lot of things that they didn't have access to, where kids are more on devices and parents are super busy and, tablets and devices are raising kids.
Right.
I think it's definitely more prevalent now than it was. But I think, depending on the way in which you work can also always be difficult for a lot of different families, people who are highly affluent and people who are on the other end of the continuum, because the busier you are, the less time you have available. So I'm talking about prioritizing.
Yeah.
You can read to your kids.
Right.
You can make sure that your kids have, if they're just entering school, some of those soft, like easy skills, making sure that they have mastered their alphabet, not just singing it,
right,
but knowing the actual letters. I think you had somebody on the podcast earlier that talked about, to talk about that concept. I mean, not just singing the alphabet, but actually knowing the letters in sequence and out of sequence.
Right.
But just those things that you can actually support, because teaching should be a partnership. It's not just on the person who is the educated professional. It's also on you, because guess what? You are your child's first teacher, and you know more about them and how they learn than anybody.
Right.
And so being in partnership with that classroom teacher is going to help you and your child get the most out of their educational experience.
No, that's fantastic. That's great. I mean, you gave me some kudos starting this thing out, but kudos to you and your team and your staff. All the Spring Mill folks out there, you're doing great work. That's amazing that you guys have put these practices in place. Yeah. And thanks to you for leading that and leading that effort. I know we're out of time and you've got other events you've got to get to today, but what would be your last piece of advice on your journey through life, through a career in education? What would the more experienced, more seasoned Kellèe tell to the younger Kellèe about the journey?
I'm going to get to that, and I know we have to wrap up, but I do want to give a shout out to Spring Mill Elementary, because when I tell you these are some of the hardest working, most dedicated professionals, and a lot of them have been with me from year one, and we've got some new people on the team, and our school has made so much progress, and that is really because we have people who care at their core about education and about children and creating learning experiences that are meaningful, relevant, and purposeful. And so a huge shout out to that team. I love them deeply, and I love that I get to do this work alongside them. So I want to say that for anybody that's watching, because I know they're going to watch, because they love their principal. But also, as we wrap up, what's one thing that I've learned, and what would I tell my younger self, from now this older self stance, is this whole idea of minding the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be is not wasted space. That is pivotal time to prepare, to lock in, to fine tune, to refine, to really sharpen all those things within you that you're going to be able to use in the next space. And so learning how to mind the gap really means learning how to work that space, embrace the gap, appreciate the gap, celebrate the gap, because where you are in this gap phase is going to give you the foundation for where you're going in the next level. And when you get to the next level, you're going to be so grateful for the gap.
That's good. You said it, sis. When you get to the next level, you're going to be grateful for that time that you spent that felt like disappointment. Yeah. But really it was just preparation. Y'all, until next time, thanks, sis. How can they find you?
You can follow me on Instagram, IG at Yes, I'm the Principal. You can also check out the Spring Mill Elementary Facebook page. You can see a lot of things that we're doing at our school, might give you some inspiration to do things in your space. And then you can also find me on Facebook at Kellèe Martin. So all those things.
Awesome. We'll put the links up. Until next time, y'all, if this helped you the way it's helped me, share it with somebody else. And remember to stay motivated. Peace.
Peace out.